For this unfortunate incident. Anahita Sedaghatfar is a defense attorney, so US Airways says we are not responsible. We looked into this. We can't find the ashes. It's not our fault. TSA really should not have sent her back to US Airways because you can bring these things through security. True?
True. Well, I think that's neither here nor there. I think I'm not the attorney for the airline. I probably should be. But I think this whole entire case could have been avoided had the airline simply communicated with this woman. I think this lawsuit is more based on her trying to get information, trying to get the airline to acknowledge and apologize to her for what happened. Because remember, Trace, this happened way back in 2011. And I think that this woman has probably come to terms by now that the ashes are long gone. So I think it's really more about getting answers. And I think the airline, had they just sat down with her, talked with her, explained to her, look, we tried to conduct an investigation. We're sorry about your loss. It possibly could have been avoided.
And now you have this woman who's a very sympathetic figure. She lost her husband's ashes, and US Airways, she said, treated her very poorly. And now she says, I want some money. I'm going to sue you. And the suit's probably frivolous. But you get this woman in court, and she says to the jury, look, I lost my husband, and this airline is bad. People don't like airlines. They don't like TSA. They don't like airlines. All of a sudden, she's thinking, I got some money coming out of this.
Exactly. I don't know that the lawsuit is frivolous, Trace.
Okay.
But I will agree with you that if this case does go to a jury, and of course there are going to be some hurdles to meet before it even goes to a jury. I'm sure the defense is going to raise waiver issues, damage limitation issues. But if it goes before a jury, can you imagine the liability that airline faces? Because you have an elderly woman. Her husband dies of cancer. He's also elderly. She's trying to carry out his last wish, and that is to have his ashes dispersed by his mother's ashes. And the airline loses his ashes, and then again ignores her, shows no sympathy for her. I think that can really sway some of those jurors, and airlines, on the other hand, not so sympathetic. So I think the airline does face some exposure here.
And I don't think it ever gets to a jury, because here's the whole procedure, right? What happens is you get some publicity. You have Fox News talking about this. You're this sympathetic woman, and now US Airways calls her in the next couple of days, says, Mrs. O'Grady, hi, we're so sorry we treated you poorly. Can we give you a few $1,000 to settle this whole thing?
Yeah, and are you sure you're not a lawyer,
Right?
Trace? I mean, you have some really good negotiation skills. Right? That's a good thing, but you're absolutely right. I think, again, this could have been avoided. The airlines could have probably saved a lot of money had they tried to resolve this in the beginning. A little goes a long way. Now, obviously, the plaintiff's lawyer, the woman's lawyer, is going to take into account that, hey, this is getting a lot of publicity. We have some leverage here. Again, they're going to have to pony up some money. Otherwise, they do run a risk of a large jury award in this case.
Lastly, if it goes before a jury, this jury is not looking at just US Airways. They're looking at all airlines, and TSA saying, here's a little message we can send to them. Maybe we give her a little bit extra money in the end.
I agree. Exactly. I think that's very possible. I think, again, a lot of people do not like airlines. They don't like all these baggage fees, paying for peanuts. What is this? We have to pay for peanuts on the airline. So I think, jurors are human beings at the end of the day, and they do take into their personal experiences into account when they're deciding on a verdict.
Indeed. Anahita Sedaghatfar, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Well, a wild shooting.